The simplest way to get unstuck is simply to move forward, to take a step in a direction. Think about a car. A car that is in movement is not stuck. It's only stuck when it is in place. And we often feel stuck because we don't like that place we're in. We want to be somewhere else. We want to feel something else, experience something else. And because we're not experiencing it, we feel stuck. Likely, there's another layer of judgment around right and wrong because we don't know what is right and we are worried about making the wrong choice or going down the wrong path. Then it keeps us in place because it's really the question of what is the right path. And because there is that label on a path rather than simply experimenting, we then keep ourselves in place. I've helped hundreds of people answer this question of how do I get unstuck so that I know the path to go forward in? What is next for me? The right thing, quote, quote, the right thing. And it is actually really simple to move yourself out of the feeling of stuckness. The harder part is choosing the path. And so oftentimes the stuckness that people feel is not because they can't move. It's because they are worried about making the wrong choice. They're worried about wasting time, about expending energy and effort into something that is not going to net them what they want. But oftentimes people haven't clarified what they want. And thus the path forward is really unclear. Because not only are you giving yourself a lot of pressure with trying to figure out right versus wrong, and giving yourself this really narrow lens through which you're thinking about your next steps, you're also creating this sense of, I'm going to fuck up and lose time. I'm going to waste effort. And then I will have gone down this path that won't land me where I want to be, when even though I'm not sure where exactly I want to be. And so if you think about the layers on top of that, that's actually what creates more pressure around the stuckness and what keeps you from moving. I worked in corporate strategy and brand strategy for 16 plus years before starting my coaching practice. And I take a lot of principles from my training, my corporate training. Not because I think business principles are better for life, but because humans came up with principles to build a thing they wanted to build outside of themselves, a company, a product, whatever. And we've spent a lot of effort into thinking about what those principles are, testing those principles in a bunch of different settings. And you turn them into MBAs or whatever degrees. But the principles are first principles. They're human experience principles. You set some vision of where you're trying to go, and then you lay out, okay, what are the milestones that I need to get to achieve to move in that direction? And then you break it down in smaller chunks so that you are where you are today and figure out what's the best next thing to do so that you can move forward in that direction. But the thing with corporate strategy is you revise it every couple of quarters for the next few quarters and every year for the next couple of years because new things come in, because you come up with a hypothesis and then you have to test it in the market with customers. No, that's no different than our lives. What fucked us up was this notion of right and wrong, that there is a right answer and a wrong one or many wrong ones. But all the research that has ever looked at meaningful living, what a good life entails, the regrets that people have on their deathbeds, is all oriented around experience. And that is a distinction between a life and a business or a corporation or something that's trying to grow a product or whatever. The first principle still applies. However, the measures are different. The measures for a life are not some KPIs that are quantitative. It is not about the amount of money we make, which is something that's been shown in research over and over. It's not about the status you achieve. It's not about the titles that you get. It's not about how much you're able to buy. It's about what you experience. And experiences are qualitative. Experiences are experiential. They're not determined by outcomes. And so think about some of the best experiences that you've had. A lot of them, you knew the feeling. There was a feeling that it gave you. But you likely couldn't have outlined, okay, here's the exact circumstance. Here's exactly who's part of it. Here's exactly what's happening. Because that is the beauty of life, the serendipity, the kind of fortuitous convening of circumstances and people and energy that turns into an experience. And there's no right or wrong around that. But what we can do is set the qualities, is to clarify what experiences we're after in this life. What qualities do we want to embody? How do we want to engage with others and with our experience? What values drive us? What principles ground us? What matters to us in this life? Who are the people? What are the relationships? What are the experiences that we want? What activities do we want to be doing? Those things determine, quote, quote, right. But too often our training, especially through school, through work, through kind of living in a very structured society, and namely I'm thinking Western society, is that there are these really structured systemic paths when life is not set up that way. Our experiences are not set up to be in this rigid structure or system where there's, a clear evaluation of right and wrong. And so if you set your own parameters around the qualities that you want to experience in this life, the experiences you want to have, the kinds of relationships that are meaningful to you, what matters, then that becomes the rubric by which you evaluate right. And if you can free yourself up from the outcome, because it'd be too arrogant for us to think that we could possibly imagine all the outcomes in this world, given the endless things we do not know. It'd be too kind of bold, and bold is the wrong word. It'd really just be too egotistical to think that we can say this is the exact outcome we want to have. Because oftentimes when people set very specific outcome goals that are not rooted in qualities and experiences that they want to have, we're usually disappointed. All the people who set money targets, all the people who set title targets, all the people who set some object that they're saving up for and buying, and the disappointment that's felt after the fact, once you achieve it, and you're like, oh, this isn't what I thought it would be. Because we didn't clarify what we wanted those outcomes to provide for us, what we wanted to feel from it, what we wanted to experience from it. And so if you allow yourself a different way of understanding the experience that you want in life and determining right based off that, the qualities of that experience, then you can free yourself up from this rigid notion of wrong and right. Because everything that you test will give you new inputs so that you can iterate and optimize it further. I mean, all of life is just a scientific experiment, the scientific method over and over. We are coming up with better hypotheses each time, hopefully, because we're taking in our experience. And then we can come up with a better educated guess because we have all this life experience. But usually we're just not incorporating all the things that we know about life and about what we want to experience in this life and the qualities that we want. Because if we did, we can come up with a really solid hypothesis that we will then go test. And then you'll have an experience and you'll bring it back in and again, iterate and optimize. And if you understand that that's actually the cycle that we're going through, that it's not you're being graded for some path you're choosing, and then there's a fail or pass mark, or there's a succeed or fail marker, then you allow yourself the freedom to iterate and then optimize and continue to do so across a lifetime. And if you ground yourself in that notion of building your life, not around right and wrong, but around coming up with better hypotheses such that you can run better tests, such that you can get better results, and then you can get better inputs into your next hypotheses, then you can move a lot faster because you won't be obsessed with being right and avoiding failure. And then you can get unstuck a lot faster. And if you accept the notion that you will not know how this goes, and that's okay, but with each test, and the faster you test, the more you'll learn, then the sooner you can get unstuck. The sooner you'll allow yourself to take an action that is an educated guess, not entirely random, but you'll take a step forward and you'll get input. And you might turn left or turn right or make a U-turn and go back a few steps. Because the other thing about our life is also that it is absolutely not linear. It might be circular at times. It might be straightforward at times. It might be a complete 180 at other times, or a full 360. But if you know fundamentally that that's what it should look like, that it should look like a wild line going in your very unique direction, and that there's no one else's that you should be following except your own, then you won't worry about the right and the wrong. And you can take your next step a lot faster.